What's up, dreamers? So I hope you're excited because today we're going to be learning about math methods, control flows, arrays, and iterations. Now this is still part of your foundation. However, this is more of the advanced stuff. So I hope you're excited and I hope you're ready because dreamers, it's time for you to wake up and make it a reality. So as we stated earlier, what we're going to be talking about today is math methods. All right, so let's say that you're at the grocery store or the gas station or the convenience store or wherever. You go, you get your stuff, you come to the checkout, as you're paying or as you're getting ready to pay, you're always offered more often than not, you're offered the opportunity to donate to charity. And the cashier says, hey, do you want to round up your total to the nearest dollar? And you can donate the change. You either say yes or you say no, but what we're going to do is figure out how do they do that. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to come to your Dream Coders directory. Now, if this is your first time to this video or first time to my channel, what I want you to do is go ahead and create a directory called Dream Coders. All right. If you do not know how to operate through your terminal, that's okay. I got a video dedicated to terminal functions, and this is something that you do need to know in order to continue as a programmer, okay? But assuming that you already know, go ahead and go to your Dream Coders directory, and I want you to make a directory in here called, we're going to call this Math Methods, all right? Math Methods. All right, make sure you're using that camel case, okay? Now, when you create that directory, go ahead and navigate inside of it. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to make a folder called math.js. All right, math.js, and go ahead and open that up inside of your terminal or in Visual Studio's Code. All right. Now, if you haven't already noticed or you haven't already figured it out, the .js, and this is just a side note, okay? The .js is short for JavaScript. I know I didn't cover that in the previous videos that I've done, but .js is you naming the file and letting the computer know, hey, this is a JavaScript file. Okay, if you followed that terminal tutorial that I had created, the files that we were creating were .txt, and that is telling the computer, hey, these are text files. So whenever you start, creating other files, you need to name them in the coordinates or in a way that the computer understands what the file is. And there are set ways in order to do that. Okay, you can't just make up your own and it'll all of a sudden know what you're doing. There are set ones to do. So, like for example, a HTML file is .html, a CSS file is .css, Python file .py, JavaScript is .js, and there's many other forms of files that you can create that's out there. You just need to know how to properly name and document what your file is, okay? So that was just a quick note on that. All right, so like I had said, you go to the grocery store, hey, do you want to round up to the next dollar? How do we do that? All right, so let's go ahead and create a variable, okay? We're gonna create a variable and we're gonna call this checkout total, okay? Make sure you're using that camel case. Checkout total, and let's say that it's $17.43. All right, how do we round up to the nearest dollar? All right, and so all we have to do is just write some logic. And JavaScript has like this little library of math functions that we can use and choose from in order for us to solve this. And we can access this by typing math with a capital M and then a period right after that and choosing whatever the math function that we want to use. Okay, and I'll put down in the description documentation that you can look over so you can see what is being offered by JavaScript, okay? But what we're going to use is we're going to use math.round, okay? So let's create another function and we're going to name this round up total, okay? Round up total, and what we're going to do is we're going to type in math.round. You're going to open up a parentheses, and inside of this parentheses we're going to put in the checkout total. All right, so remember what I had said in previous videos, the parentheses says, hey computer, this is a function, so I need you to, activate this function. So what this saying is saying, I want you to round checkout total. Checkout total is 1743. So if we come down here and we create a console log, and we decide to console log round up total, okay, make sure you're using that camel case. We come over here, node, math.js, and we get 17. So we see this and we're like, well, that didn't exactly round up, that actually rounded down. Okay, so if we go back and look at our documentation, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring this down here. That way y'all can see what's going on. All right, so if you look at this documentation, okay, this is what it looks like. If you come over here to the left-hand side, you'll see math, you'll see properties. We're not looking at properties, okay? We are learning math methods. That's what we're learning today. Come down to math methods, you look for math.round. It's right here. You click on it, and it says the math.round static method returns the value of a number rounded to the nearest integer. Okay, so if we had, let's say, change this to, instead of 43, 53, what happens if we rerun this? It rounds up to 18. Okay, so just like basic math, anything past 0.5 rounds up, and anything before 0.5 rounds down. Okay, but that's not exactly what we want. We want to always round up. Okay, and if you're ever wondering how does this function work, of course, the JavaScript documentation gives you examples of how it works. Okay, so like I said, what we want to do is we want to find a way to round up always. And so this is where math.ceil comes in. Okay, you want to guess what ceil is short for? Short for ceiling. Okay, so let's comment this one out. Let's create another variable called roundup total. Math.ceil. And once again, we're gonna put in checkout total inside of here. And let's go ahead. Let's not forget to change this back to 43. Go ahead and save it. Let's rerun this code. And as you can see, it's 18. And if you want to be sure, we can change this to a 0. So it's 1703. Rerun your code. And it's 18. Perfect. So let's say that we want to know what the difference is, okay? How much did we actually donate to charity? You can create another function. We can just call this donation, all right? Call it donation. And we are going to take roundup total minus checkout total. Save it, and let's rerun this. That's not right. Oh, here we go. This is the problem. We didn't console log what donation is. That's what it was. So as you can see, the difference of $18 and 1703 is 96.999999 repeating. All right, so obviously in money, this is not normal. Money, we only go 2 decimal places. So how do we fix that? So what we want to do now is use a toFixed operation. Okay, so what we're going to do, go ahead and highlight this math function right here. Put it in parentheses. Let's do dot toFixed. Let's say 2 places. All right, come back over here, rerun this, and as you can see, it is 97-cent difference. So what's going on right here? If we haven't already discussed it, all right, JavaScript offers integers as a form of a variable, but not all integers are whole numbers. Some of them are decimals, just like this one. And what these are called they are called floats. And floats mean decimal places. So think of it like the floating decimal. You were probably taught in school that if you're trying to convert a percentage to a decimal place, the decimal floats around in order to fit the number. Yada yada yada. That's how I remembered what float is. Float correlates to decimal. It's a decimal number. Okay, and so this toFixed is saying, hey, fix this decimal to 2 places. Only go 2 places. That's what toFixed is for. All right, and I know that, if you're new at reading documentation and trying to find answers, this can be very overwhelming. You don't know what you're looking for. I mean, even if you did see this math.ceil, you weren't gonna know exactly what it is, right? How do you know that it's not this math.sin or math10, math hypot? See, I don't even know what some of this stuff is, but that's okay. All right, I'm gonna give you a few most likely syntaxes that you'll use. All right, I'm gonna comment this stuff out, and I'm just gonna paste these in for you. So math.ceil, okay, as we already used, it goes up. It brings the number to the next highest whole number. Math.floor, it will always round the number down. Math.max finds the largest number. Min, the smallest number. Random, you can get a number between 0 and -1. And then round, it'll round it. All right, I'll bring this down so you can see the rest of this. So just keep these in mind as we progress forward. So now what we're gonna start learning is control flow, okay? We're gonna start learning about if statements and how do they work. And believe it or not, in life, we always go by an if statement. Do we want to make a left or do we want to make a right? That's an if statement. If we're going to the store, we might want to take a left. If we're going home, we might need to take a right. If the light is red, we stop. If the light is green, we go. So this is how if statements work, okay? And like I said, we pretty much live our lives based on if statements, and rather the statement is true or rather it's false. Some more examples is, if the door is closed, we open it. If the door is open, we close it. This is how a lot of the functions in our computer programs are going to work as well. Okay, it's going to evaluate the condition, and then based on that condition, it will choose an answer for us. Control flow lets you specify when and which the lines of code get executed, and there are going to be 3 forms of control flow. There's going to be a conditional, loops, which we've already covered, and functions. All right, so let's just start with conditional. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to create a new file, and we're going to name this file conditionals.js. Okay, you'll see that conditionals.js is already in here. All right, so let's just navigate to conditionals and let's use this new file. Okay, so the example that we're going to use is going to be M&Ms. All right, let's say that you only like the M&Ms that are not green. Okay, for some reason you have a prejudice against green M&Ms. All right, so in real life, if you poured all your M&Ms inside of your hand, you would pick an M&M up, you would look at it, and you would determine if it's green. If it's green, you would throw it away. If it's not green, you would eat it. And so we are going to write a function based on that. So let's create a variable. Okay, let's create a variable, and we're going to call this is M&M color green. Okay, don't forget to use camel case. See that this is true. All right. If statements are written like this. Okay. If you type if, you can come down to the one with the square next to it. It'll say if statement, as you can see, and just press enter. All right. But this is the basic outline of a if statements. Okay, remember how statements are used. We got to have a Boolean in here. So if is M&M color green, we're going to console log. Remember, console log is your friend, always console log. And we're going to say, ew, I hate the green ones. Okay. And then we're going to write else. And we're going to say, yum, these are so good. All right. Let's go ahead and run this function. Okay, node. All right. Remember, you got to run the file that we're using. Okay, we're no longer using math.js. We're using conditionals.js. Node conditionals.js. And you'll get a console log saying, ew, I hate the green ones. So what just happened? We are console logging what M&M color is M&M color green. This is true. So that means that we are holding green M&Ms. If the color of the M&M is green, which is true, then we are printing this one. Okay. If we had one that was false, if we changed this to false, let's just do that right now. If we change this to false, save it, it'll go top to bottom and it will read, is the color of M&M green? It'll say no, false. And so it'll skip this altogether and it'll do what we tell it to do as far as everything else. So let's go ahead and rerun this. Yum, these are so good. All right, let's go ahead and comment this out. Let's do another example. Okay, let's say we're driving somewhere. Okay, let's create a variable for the store. All right, let's say it's false. Let's create a variable for the park. Let's say that's false. And let's create a variable for the mall. Let's say that's false. All right, so we're gonna write a statement, an if statement for each one of these. If we go to the store, we want it to say one thing. If we go to the park, we want it to say another thing. And if we go to the mall, we want it to say something completely else. And if for whatever reason we go to someplace other than the three, we will say something completely different. All right. So go ahead and get your if statement ready. Okay. If we are going to the store, then we want to say console log, I am going to the store. All right. Now, what we did last time is we did else. Okay. But else will not work in this situation, because what this is saying is that, okay, if we're not going to the store, everything else is going to be said here. So it doesn't matter if we're at the park, it doesn't matter if we're at the mall, it doesn't matter if we're anywhere else. As long as we're not at the store, this is what's going to be said, which is not the case. We want each one to have its own saying. Okay. And the way we do that is say, instead of else, we say else if. All right. And just like this, if statement, we need to have a parentheses. All right, so in here we'll say park log, I am going to the park. Okay, what do we do again? Else if. All right, you can have as many else ifs as needed. Okay, you can only have one if and you can only have one else, but you can have as many else ifs as needed. Okay, now whenever you do your else ifs, don't forget to put in the parentheses. Okay, I'm gonna do one for mall log, I'm going to the mall, and everything else we will just say log, I am going home. All right, so if everything is false, what output should we get? If you said I'm going home, then you are correct. That is the output we should get. Let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, it says, I am going home. So for those of you who did not understand that, what this is saying is, if this is true, print this. If going to the store is true, print the store statement. If that's not true, what if this is true? Is going to the park true? If it is, print this. If not, go to the next one. Mall. If it's not true, then print what everything else is. And as you can see, we set everything to false. So if we set park to true, save it, rerun it, what output should we get here? If you said, I'm going to the park, then you are correct. I'm going to the park. Right? And let's say we had the store is true. Okay, so now we have store is true. We'll have park is true. And we'll have mall is false. So what output do you think we'll get from here? This one's a little bit tricky. So think about it. If you said, I am going to the store, you are correct. Okay, let's go ahead and rerun this. It says, I'm going to the store. So why does it say we're going to the store? And why does it not say, I'm going to the store and I'm going to the park? You know, you have both statements that are true. So the way conditional statements work is that it will stop whenever the condition is met. So whichever condition is met first is the output that you're given. So because store is the first one that was provided to us, it read it, it said, okay, this is true, so I'm done, and we're going to skip everything else and we're going to go to the next line of code. All right, and we'll get more into that later on. I just wanted to show you that so that you're aware of how these statements, how the conditional statements work at a more in-depth level. All right, let's go ahead and comment this out. Let's go ahead and start learning about modulos. Okay, modulo, that's M-O-D-U-L-O, modulo. Modulos are pretty simple to understand. Okay, I'm going to try to break it down to you as easy as I can. Okay, so what a modulo is a math equation looking for a remainder. All right, so for example, let's do this if statement. If 5 is a modulo of 2, does it equal 0? Does it provide an absolute of 0? Let's go ahead and put a log. And it's going to say number is even. All right, let's go ahead and run this. Run it. And you don't get an output right here because it's false. Remember, this is only executing if the statement is true. So because 5 is not a modulo of 2 and it's not equal to 0, we do not get an output. So what we need to do at this point is to create the else statement. Provide an else. Log number is odd. All right, so it's telling us that the number is odd. So modulo, that's this parenthesis sign. I mean the parentheses, the percentage sign. That's what a modulo icon is. So what this is saying is 5, think about this like math, okay? 5 divided by 2, does it equal 0? It does not, okay? 2 cannot go into 5 evenly. So what this is asking, okay, because obviously in more advanced math, you know, you can do the decimal sign, you know, you can do the bring the 0 down so you can get a decimal point, because Can 2 go into 5? Yeah, it goes in there 0.2 something. I don't know, maybe 0.25 or something. So what this is saying is this is where the remainder comes in. Okay, if you remember in like 3rd grade math, or at least 3rd grade for me, whenever I was being taught about division, is that we would do a remainder. Okay, so if I did 5 divided by 2, 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2, the 5 minus 4, it's 1, so I have 2 with a remainder of 1. Okay, what we are looking for is a remainder of 0. All right, I hope that makes sense to you. 2, like if you do 5 divided by 2, 2 goes into 5 2 times. Bring the 4 down here. 5 minus 4 is 1. So it'll be 2 with a remainder of 1. That means it is not a modulo of 2. That's kind of how like modulos work. All right, let's go ahead and comment that out. Let's try an if statement of 4 with the modulo of 2. Does it have an absolute of 0 or a remainder of 0? Log. This statement is even. Let's go ahead and rerun this. And we get the statement because 2 goes into 4 perfectly without a remainder. And you can also look for other statements. Let's use the 5 and 2 for example. Let's say 5 of a modular of 2 does not have an absolute of 0. Okay, console log, this is not even, or this is odd. How about that? Rerun your code and we get the output. This is odd because this is saying, hey, does 5 go into 2 or does 2 go into 5? If not, if it doesn't have a remainder of 0, then print this. And if we were to use bigger numbers, okay, this is an easy way to get bigger numbers or test bigger numbers. If 49, the modulo of 7, doesn't have an absolute number of 0 or a remainder of 0. If it does, this is divisible by 7. Save it. Let's run it. And of course, we get an output that this is divisible by 7 because 7 times 7 is 49. All right, what I want you to do now, go ahead and clear this. I want you to create another file. Okay, we're going to create this and we're going to call it loops and conditionals. Okay, don't forget to use camel case. Loops and conditionals. I'm going to go ahead and go into that file. Oop, and don't be like me. All right, make sure you give it a .js. Okay, and what we're going to start doing is we're going to start doing booleans, conditionals, and loops. So if you remember from the previous videos, loops are there for us to do something repeatedly. All right, we'll continue to use loops every time that we need to build out something with more control flow. So just to recap, all right, if we were to do a for loop, okay, change it to I. We're going to say let I equal 0. If I is less than or equal to, let's say 10, take the value of I and add 1 to it. And console log I. Okay, so we should get the numbers 1 through 10 if we ran this. As you can see, we get 0, 0, 1 through 10. So hopefully that jogs your memory. All right, and so I'm gonna give you a challenge, okay? So in this challenge, what I would like you to do is I would like you to create a conditional saying rather a number is odd or if it's even, okay? I want you to go 1 through 10 and tell me rather it's odd or it's even. You're gonna use a combination of conditions, booleans, and if statements, okay? If statements are your conditionals, by the way. Think about how you wanna do this. Take this time and write out pseudocode if you have to, okay? And what I want you to do, if you're the pseudocode type of person, is I want you to write down each step that you want to do, okay? Write it in human language. Don't write it in computer language. Write it in human language. Maybe that will help you come up with a solution in order to get this done, all right? Take about 5 minutes. See if you can do this. And then when you're done, come back and we'll go over the answer together. All right, so let's go over this answer together. So like I said, what we're gonna do is we're gonna print out whether a number is even or if it's odd, 1 through 10. All right, so one of the first things that we're gonna do is already done. All right, we're gonna have this for loop, okay? And this for loop is already providing us numbers 1 through 10, starting with 0, but it's still going 1 through 10. Or you know what? Let's make this. I won't change it up on you. We'll keep it at 1. And if we rerun this code, it says 1 through 10. But this isn't what we want. We want rather it's odd or even. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get rid of this console log, and we're gonna have an if statement instead. So what we need to use is a modulo right here, okay? And we're gonna say, is I a modulo of 2, and is it equal to 0? So what this is saying is the value of I, can it be divided into 2? Okay, because we all know all even numbers can be divided into 2 without any remainders. So when this goes through the loop, it'll start with 1. And it'll say, hey, is 1 a modulo of 2? We all know that it's not, okay? Then when it'll come down, it'll start with 2. Is 2 a modulo of 2? And then it'll print an answer. And then in 3, it's 3 modulo of 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if it's a modulo of 2, what we want is we want to print off this statement, okay? We want it to console log. This number is even, okay? If it's not a modulo of 2, we want to have this else statement that says this number is odd. So if we print this, okay, rerun it, and you will see down here that we have odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. All right. So if this is something that you were able to do, congratulations, because this is difficult to do. This is very difficult to do. And if you weren't able to do this, that's okay. I'm going to give you another challenge for you to do by yourself. All right. And you can just pause the video now and you can try to do it by yourself. But I want you to do 1 through 30. Okay. Figure out if you can find a modulo of 3. And if it is, you can console log saying this is divisible by 3. And if it's not, you can say that it's not divisible by 3. See if you can do that. All right. Because sometimes what we need is just a little bit more practice. Sometimes we don't get it the first time, and that's okay. We just need more practice. We just need more perseverance. And I'm giving you the opportunity to do that. And then if you get that done and you still want more practice, do 50 with the modulo of 5. Then do 100 with the modulo of 10, or a modulo of 3, or a modulo of 15, or whatever number modulo that you want to do, whatever practice that you feel comfortable with in order to understand it. Just make sure you get it done. Now, if for whatever reason you completed this challenge and you got the exact same answers that I got, but you didn't do it my way, that's okay too. My way is not the only correct way to do it, because the good thing about programming is that there are so many ways that you can get the same job done. So if you, like I said, if you did it, you got the same answer, but you didn't do it my way, that's okay. And kudos to you for getting it done. All right. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go ahead and clear your terminal. And I want you to create another file. And we're going to call this array.js, okay? Or arrays.js. All right. You can go ahead and close the one that you're currently in, open up your arrays.js, and we're going to start learning about arrays. So what an array is, it's a data structure, and it can contain numbers or strings, or you can assign variables to it. There's a lot of different things that you can do with arrays. And what an array really is nothing more than a list. Okay? All list items go between square brackets. All right? Just like this. All right? It looks exactly like that. You'll have your square brackets, and then you'll have your list items inside of the brackets. And this is what's known as an array. All right? But you cannot write an array the way I wrote it. Okay? All arrays need to have a variable name. Okay? So if we create a variable name, we're going to use const. Okay? We can call this R for array, short for array. You can assign the variable R for array, this array list. Okay? And we're just using R for an example in this example because we're not, naming anything specific. But normally, you would give a naming convention a little bit more meaning. Okay, so remember that. Always be aware of your naming conventions. All right. So if we wanted to console log our array, R, don't forget to save it. And all we have to do is come back to our terminal, node arrays.js. And as you can see, it will print off an array with all of our items inside of it. All right. Now, if you decided to do an empty array, let's say empty R, all you have to do is just do the empty brackets. Okay. And if we were to console log our empty R, you would get an output of empty brackets saying, hey, this array is empty. All right. So whenever you're creating your arrays, each item is separated by a comma. All right. If you do not put a comma in there, like this, for example, it will tell you with a red squiggly line, hey, pretty sure this is not correct. Are you sure this is correct? Because you cannot have spaces like this. All right. You can have 12. You can have as many characters in here as you want to. You just can't have spaces because it's going to wonder why there's a space in there. And as stated before, that's where the commas come in, so you can separate your items. All right. So arrays can have integers, which are these. It can also have strings. All right. So you, me, him, her. All right. If we printed this, if we console log this array, you would see you, me, him, her. All right. All right. And the last thing that we can have, or it's not the last thing, but the last thing I'm going to aware you of is that you can have booleans in here. True, false, false. Whoops. False, true, true. All right. You rerun it. And of course, it'll give you the output of the booleans that are in your array. So what I want you to do, okay, take this time, challenge yourself, all right? Become a better programmer. And what I want you to do is I want you to create an array of your favorite foods, all right? Create 5. If you don't have favorite foods, that's fine. Just think of 5 random favorite fruits. And I want you to create an array of that. And then when you're done creating the array, I want you to console log it into your terminal. All right. So let's do this. Const favorite foods. And I hope that you gave your array a proper naming convention and did camel case. All right, if you did, you're that much closer to becoming a good programmer because you're retaining this information, which is good. We're going to create our array with brackets. And I'm just going to say pizza, tacos, lemons, pie, and Hot Pockets. All right, so then we're going to console log this. Favorite foods, save it, rerun it, and it's there. So if you were able to complete this challenge, good for you, because, you know, as always, this is difficult to learn. And especially if you learn this on your first try, like that's amazing. You deserve to give yourself a pat on the back. All right, so how do we access each one of these individually? All right, because each one of these is the I in a for loop, okay, or the index. In arrays, everything starts with 0. All right, whenever you're thinking about counting in programming or computer language, computers always start with 0. Okay, us as, you know, especially if you're American, you're going to start with the number 1. Okay, we've always been taught to start with 1 and then continue forward. We are never taught to start with 0. So this may be a challenge for you, but whenever you're doing programming, we are going to start with the number 0. Okay, and so if we wanted to get an item from our array, we would say the array name, and we would do a bracket inside of it. And let's just put in the number 1, for example. Okay, so this is saying console log. I want you to console log the favorite foods array, but instead of printing out the whole array, I just want you to give me the index of 1. All right, so what do you think? Out of all of these items, which one do you think is the index of 1? All right, if you paid attention to what I just got done telling you, you may have guessed that the answer is tacos. And that's because computers think to start with number 0. They don't start to number 1. So when we run our code, we get the output of tacos. Okay, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even though there's 5 items in here, it's starting with 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so if we were to get the first element, like I said, start with 0, come back, you run your code, and we get pizza. All right, so I hope that's a good learning experience for you, and I hope that's something that you can remember. All right. And I'm not really sure when you would ever really use this, okay? But let's say that you want to throw an equation in there, okay? Let's say you did 1 plus 1 plus 1 times 2. Okay, so this should be the answer of 4. And we should get Hot Pockets. You get Hot Pockets because 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So there's lots of ways where you can get this information, the data from your array. And we can also use variables to pull data from our array. All right. So let's just say that we create this variable and it's called, let's just call it index for now. We won't really worry about naming conventions. Just call it index and we just say that it's 2. All right. So we still want to pull from our array. So we say favorite foods. and we say index. So what's the value of index? It's 2. So which one of these would we get? If you said lemons, you are correct. We rerun our code, we get lemons, y, 0, 1, 2. All right, this is no different. The value of index is 2, so this is literally no different than me putting 2 in here. Okay, rerun the code, you get lemons. So let's say that this array is not favorite foods. Let's say that we are working for a university and we have the entire university campus students' names, and we want to know how many students we have enrolled in our school. Okay, think about a university. Okay, think about Texas Tech, for example. How many students do you think there are in a university? You know, tens of thousands. So how much sense would it make for you to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to you're finished? It makes no sense. It's illogical, it's unreasonable, and the chances of you doing that, very slim to none. Which is okay. We have perfect ways of doing this. All right, this is what programming is for, so we can have an easier way of getting this completed. So if we console log our array, and we say name of the array, which is in this one is going to be favorite foods, dot length, we run this, and it will tell us you have 5 items in your array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So if you had 10,000, 30,000, 50,000 students in the array, instead of counting them like a crazy person, you wouldn't just simply put in the name of the array dot length, and it would tell you how many items are in that array. All right. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to create this array that I'm about to post in here. Okay. Dr. Seuss, create this array right quick. And then when you're done creating this array, what I would like you to do is I want you to challenge yourself. All right. I want you to console log the first element in the array. I want you to then make a variable called third, and I want you to pull that item in the array, the third one, using a variable. And then I want you to console log the last item in the array. All right. Pause the video, take the time to do this. It should take you a few minutes, and then come back and we'll work through it together. All right. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna console log the first item in the array. So if you remember, we gotta name the array, Dr. Seuss books, and we're gonna give it an index of 0. All right, remember, when we give this an index of 0, oh, look at that, we got an error. Dr. Seuss books. There you go. Forgot the S. All right. Cat in the Hat. Cat in the Hat. Don't forget, your computer starts with the number 0. It does not start with the number 1. And you probably realize that. You probably accidentally put in number 1, forgetting. And that's okay. But as long as you turned around and you knew how to fix the problem, that's all that matters. Take me, for example. You just saw me run into this error where I didn't even name my array correctly. Okay, sometimes we overlook things, sometimes we're not paying attention, sometimes who knows what happens. But as long as you know how to fix the errors, at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. Because no matter how good of a programmer you really are, you're always going to make errors somewhere at some time. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called third. All right, we're going to call it third. We're going to give it a value of 3. And what we're going to do is console log the third item in our array. All right, so if you had gotten 1, 2, see, look at that. I'm over here counting 1, and it's not even 1. 0, 1, 2, 3. If you got thing 1, that would have been correct. So if we put in third in here, we rerun our code, and we get thing 1. All right. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to try to get the last item in our array, which is Jojo make Dodd. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call this last item. Okay, and I'm going to say that it's Dr. Seuss books dot length -1. And then I'm going to print last item. Save it. We run it and we get Jojo make Dodd. Jojo make Dodd. Alright, so rather you did it my way, another way, it doesn't matter as long as you got the last item. Okay, so if you decided to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you just decided to do Dr. Seuss book 6, there's nothing wrong with that. Alright, I'm just here providing options to you so you're aware of the different ways you can complete this challenge. All right, let's add an item in here. Let's add it under green eggs and ham. And let's say we put in here cuckoo clock of doom. All right, make sure you put the comma. All right, because you need commas to separate your items. So for those of you that are readers, Cuckoo Clock of Doom is not written by Dr. Seuss. I think it's written by R.L. Stine, or the guy that writes the Goosebumps. Or lady. I don't know. I remember I used to read them whenever I was younger. Can't remember. But it's not a Dr. Seuss book. Okay? So let's say we have this item in here and we need to change it. How would we do that? So what we would do is we would find the value of it, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so this is going to be a value of 2. We're going to create a variable, all right? And we're going to say Dr. Seuss books, all right? We're going to get the array, and we're going to say the index of 2. And we're going to change it to a string to whatever we want it to set it to. So let's change it to Horton, here's a who. All right. If we console log it, console log, and we log the books node, you can see the Cuckoo Clock of Doom is no longer there, and we actually have Horton here's a who. So if you need to make changes in your array, you can do that. All right, so as a challenge, take this time. I want you to go ahead and add at the end of the list. I want you to go ahead and add the number 12 as a string, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to change this to be the Lorax. Take a couple minutes, pause the video, really challenge yourself and see if you can complete this challenge. All right, let's get this started. All right, so what we're gonna do is we are going to find the value of it. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we're gonna say Dr. Seuss books. Oh, that's not it. With the index of 8, and we are gonna set the value to the Lorax. So whenever we console log Dr. Seuss books, we should see the value change. And as you can see, the very last item changed to Lorax. All right, but if we look up here, Cuckoo Clock of Doom, what happened to that? How come that changed back? Well, it's because we commented out the first item that we had changed the first time. Okay, so if we uncommented, if we rerun it, you should see that the array has updated to its entirety. Okay, so we have Horton here's a who, and we have the Lorax in there. All right, so that's how you get that done. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start learning how to use our arrays with for loops. All right, so go ahead and write out a for loop. All right, change it to I. And we're gonna start with 0. Okay, so I is going to be this right here, Dr. Seuss 0. So just how we have a 0 as our index, I, remember this was index before, that's where this goes in. It goes in here. Okay, so what this is going to go through is that it's going to go through the loop. We're going to change it to 1, and then it'll have a 1, and then we'll go through and it'll change it to 2, so on and so forth. All right, but let's go through this. Change it to I equals 0, I is less than notice how this says array.length. What we want it to do to say is the actual name of our array. So Dr. Seuss books dot length. Okay, and then we want to add 1 to the value of our index. All right, and every time it goes through here, I want it to say my favorite book is, and I want you to type in I. All right, so what it should read every time it goes through is it should say my favorite book is Cat in the Hat. All right, and don't forget to add the I plus plus, that way you're not stuck in an infinite loop. So what this is doing is that it's going to say let I equal 0, so it's going to start with index 0. Okay, and it's going to say, hey, is I less than the total length of the array, which is true, and if it is, add 1 to it. Okay, but before you actually add 1 to it, what I want you to do you actually don't need this, sorry. What I want you to do is run this and then add 1 to it. Okay, so if we come back to our terminal, look at that, we got an error. I messed up. So this is actually going to be, what I want you to do is I want you to say Dr. Seuss books with the index of I. All right. Now I want you to rerun this, and you should see it say that my favorite book is Cat in the Hat, my favorite book is Green Eggs and Ham, so on and so forth, all the way until you get down to the last bottom. All right, so just to recap, okay, I want to make sure you really understand this. Let I equal 0. So the index is starting at 0, which is the first item. It's saying, is the value of the index, which is currently 0, less than the total length of the array? So our total length of the array, I think, is 8. So yes, 0 is less than 8. Great. Now we want to say console log. We want it to console log. My favorite book is the array item. And then when you're done, add 1 to the value of index. So we go to 2, and we'll do the same thing, and then 3, 4, 5, all the way until we're finished. So that's how that works. Hopefully you're understanding for loops and arrays integrated toward one another. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to challenge yourself. Okay, this is going to be a little bit harder of a challenge. What I want you to do is I want you to take this time and I want you to redo this challenge. But instead of going one item at a time, what I want you to do is I want you to print out every 2 items. All right, I want you to print out every 2 items. See if you can get that done. All right, so what we're gonna do is you can go ahead and comment this out. I'm gonna do another for loop. And what we're gonna say, we're still gonna start it at 0. All right, we need to change the array length to Dr. Seuss books dot length. We're gonna give this plus equals 2. All right, if you could not figure that out, that's okay. All right, I hope that you at least try to figure it out. Don't forget to use your resources. Okay, I didn't tell you this, so I kind of expected you to go to Google and figure out how to, figure out how to go by 2s. And if you did that, great. So what I want you to do is console log at this point. Console log. We're going to say the even iteration book is Dr. Seuss. Did I spell that wrong? An I. Alright, what's going on here? Dr. Seuss books. There we go. Come back. Let's go ahead and clear this. Rerun it. Cat in the Hat, Cuckoo Clock, Thing 1, Cindy Lulu, 12. So 0, 1, 2. Alright, Cuckoo Clock of Doom. It's gonna start with 0, by the way, because we're starting with 0. So Cat in the Hat, Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Thing 1, Cindy Lulu, 12. Alright, it's going by 2s. If you were able to do this, you are that much far ahead than a lot of people right now. All right, but if not to worry. We just need a little bit more practice. All right, now that I told you this iteration of 2, if you weren't able to figure that out, I guarantee you that the next one is going to be so much easier for you. All right, guys, if you made it through the entire video, then congratulations, because this is more than what 75% of people usually stop and give up and says, hey, this is too hard. But you didn't, and I congratulate you. Okay, if you still found this difficult, but you're still here, just keep putting in the effort. I promise it's going to get easier day by day, hour by hour, and code by code. Okay, just keep putting in the effort, keep coming back, and keep learning. Right? And put in more time, more than just this video. Okay, if you forget some stuff, if you're not too sure about some things, go back and either rewatch the video and create your own version of challenges. Okay, I try my best to give you guys as much challenges as I can throughout the video. That way you can put your knowledge to the test and make sure that you're actually learning as you're watching along. But if that's not enough for you, give yourself the extra practice that you need. Okay, it doesn't hurt, it can only benefit you. But once again, I'm so happy that you came. I'm so happy that you finished this video, and I'm so happy that you're that much closer to getting to where you want to be. Because Dreamer, I'm so glad that you're waking up and making it a reality.